Bless Radio. It's Tuesday evening and it's 6 p.m. UK time. This is the spiritual discussion program. I'm Saad in southeast London, and the weather here is bright, a few clouds, but lovely and warm, about 23 degrees centigrade. And I'm joined by Gregory as usual. Gregory, how are you and how's the weather where you are?
Well, fine here, and the weather is just like London, where you are.
Very good. Thank you. Dear listeners, as I said, this is the spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushi. And we have a topic every week, a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. I'll repeat that. The topic for tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushi is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abrushi. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. Dear listeners, just want to remind you the topic we're discussing tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. Prayer and relapsing into old faults. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And listeners, I just want to recognize that today is the 21st of June, which is the longest day of the year, and it's known as the summer solstice. And astrologically, they say that's the beginning of summer, although I think we could say we already experienced the summer beginning already. So that's just to say that out to everyone. Gregory, as you know, I always look at the title of the topic and look at the key words and look them up in the dictionary. And so the first word there is, just to remind listeners that the topic tonight we're discussing is prayer and relapsing into old faults. Now, so the first key word there is prayer. So I looked that up in the dictionary, and there, Gregory, it says, an address, such as a petition to God, or a God with a little g, in word or thought. Said a prayer, like an example they give, said a prayer for the success of the voyage. Another meaning they've given in the dictionary is a set order of words used in praying. And then again, it says some other. I think I will try not to say more because we might get diverted from actually addressing it. So I'll just repeat that, Gregory. So the definition in the dictionary of prayer is an address, such as a petition to God, or a little g, God, in word or thought. An example they've given is a prayer for the success of the voyage. So Gregory, those words, that's just one part of the definition I found. Do they give a good representation of the meaning of the word prayer?
From the usual observation, they encapsulate what is seen by others or what is performed by others, and such as petitions. Therefore, that externally looks like a prayer. But is it a prayer? That's a different. The question will be, what impact after this definition, what impact has this activity, what impact does it have on the environment, on the personality, and to whom prayer is sent?
Right. So you are pointing to we need to look at the impact of what is called prayer when we say somebody has said a prayer.
Yes.
Just and yeah, go on. Yeah.
One is referring to the actual meaning of a prayer in its operations in creation, in nature. That is what one is referring to.
Right. So we need to look at the activity of what what is the effect of prayer. Gregory, I want to look at another you could say description. This time it's from Wikipedia, for the meaning again of prayer, and there it says prayer is an invocation or an act that seeks to activate a rapport with an object of worship through deliberate communication. In the narrow sense, the term refers to an act of supplication or intercession directed towards a deity or deified ancestor. And Gregory, because I hadn't heard of this word deified, I looked that up as well. And deified, they say, is worship or regard as a god. So how does that one sound?
Well, it sounds very similar to the initial one. The impression or the expression which is used as prayer is an activity. However, the impact, which impact is in accordance with the laws through which all came into existence, that impact is what is not mentioned here and what has not been thought about. And therefore, you have an expression. The real impression which triggered that expression prayer has not been understood. And unless that impression is understood, then the word itself, that activity itself, is meaningless.
I couldn't agree with you more about that, Gregory, that we need to have proper understanding of this prayer, because otherwise it will, as you say, will be meaningless. The impact will be meaningless as well, of course. Now, maybe we need to give some context, Gregory, to get the picture right. Now, just to remind everybody, the topic we're discussing tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. So I would say in the definitions we have read so far, there was a mention of worship of God or a God. And I don't think that is what we are referring to in our discussion tonight, Gregory. It is in concern with relapsing into old faults. Would I be correct in that for that discussion tonight? Would that be correct?
Partially so. But that has still not addressed what a prayer is.
Right. Okay. Can you help with that then, Gregory? Could you put a definition for us that, because we obviously for the discussion tonight, we need to have a picture. Otherwise, people may not, let's say each person will have their own idea. So let's try to put a picture and then we will base our discussion on this picture.
Basically, it is well understood that when you see someone focused in a particular idea, that person seemed to eliminate all distracting forces around him or her. One must at the same time ask oneself, what is one striving to achieve? Any meaningful achievement must initiate the forces of nature, must initiate the laws of nature, the way the laws of nature work. When it is referred to man, the way or the pattern is that of the intuitive perception. So when that expression prayer is used, the deep impression is the awakening of the intuitive perception. For only through the intuitive perception is the personality able to communicate with the forces in nature, with the forces in creation, and also with the schemes, what had been placed in creation. Only through that channel can there be a response. That means a spiritual response. All else is a complete waste of time and energy, for it is of no consequence. Therefore, when prayer is mentioned, that prayer must have an impact on one's intuition. Else, it is not a prayer, but a babbling of meaningless words.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. What you're pointing to is that prayer must be said in earnestness. Like you said, there has to be a focus. So it's like now in here, again, the topic which, if we bring the topic, sort of how can I say the topic again, which is prayer and relapsing into old faults. So if somebody is concerned about their faults, which is something serious, and then they say a prayer concerning one of their faults, let's say, then that is actually, we're talking about relapsing. So it's not that somebody's, they seem to having difficulty dealing with their faults. They keep relapsing into their fault. So it is already by that definition something serious, and their prayer, it's like they've tried what they have tried, but it's not working, and now they're making a prayer, earnest prayer, let's call it, to, I don't know if the word is to eliminate this fault or to overcome this fault, or or I could say overcome it, because we don't want to relapse into it. So again, going in that way, actually, Gregory, maybe I should just, no, let me not go there just yet. So let's go there. Let's look at that. So prayer, as you said, the impact of the prayer can only, let's say, the true impact, or when I say the word true impact, I mean something that is effective. For the prayer to be effective, we must have a earnestness in it. And so let me think of the question, what I want to say about that. So Gregory, is there, so let's say there's something we are concerned about and we ask for help through prayer. Now, is that, let's say the result of that prayer, is that dependent on our attitude alone, or is that the main key thing for that beneficial result to come?
Again, if that activity has no impact on one's intuition, which intuition is the language which is used for communication, then that activity as such has no justification or is completely meaningless. In the case where it has an impact on one's intuition, then through one's intuition, which is this deep inner sensing, when that is considered, that particular scenario, it is able to activate in accordance with the laws of nature or the laws of creation, and is able to reach certain heights in its purity. Only in such a manner will there be a response in accordance with the laws of creation. If that is not the case, then you would have, it has been a waste of time, and one cannot start talking about relapsing into old faults. For the response, the returns, which come back in accordance with the laws of creation, will depend on how pure, how earnest that particular person has been, or how earnest, how pure that person continues to be along the line. So the help and the wealth of experiences, the power which the person seeks for its well-being, is dependent on him and him alone, in accordance with its own purity, its own earnestness.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. And I know you repeated what you said in a previous question, but it helped to clarify. Sometimes you have to hear things a few times before it sort of sinks in. So I think I got what you're saying now. It's like, yes, you make a prayer for, let's say, a petition for some purpose, but it has to connect with your intuition for it, and work in a pure and earnest way for it to be effective. And so in a way, we need to look at this whole, realize this big picture of the activity of prayer and how it is effective. Otherwise, we're not seeing that picture. So thank you for that. Okay. Now, Greg, I want to continue with the other words in the keywords in the title for the topic tonight. And just to remind listeners, the topic we are discussing tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. And we've talked about prayer now, and I would like to go into the word relapse. Again, in the dictionary, it says, of a sick or injured person, deteriorate after a period of improvement. And the example they give is 2 of the patients in remission relapsed after 48 months. And another example they've given, or they say definition, part of the definition of relapse, is return to a less active or worse state. he relapsed into silence. And I also have another, so could say, a synonym for relapse is setback or slip. So again, the example they gave is a relapse is a slip, setback. Sorry, a relapse is one of the most frustrating, humiliating experiences you can face in recovery from any problem. So Gregory, what do you say about this meaning of relapse?
Again, the word relapse gives the strong impression of to fall back to as it was, or even a worse scenario. There are two basic areas. The case where they have the babbling of requests by a personality, which babbling has no intuition attached to it. That scenario carries nothing but a complete waste of time and energy. So one cannot talk about relapse in that case because that which initiates returns in creation, which is one's intuition, was not involved. The second case is that in which one has one's intuition in favor, in pure favor, was able to initiate the request. Definitely, there will be a response in accordance with the laws of nature, the laws of creation, through which the individual also came into existence. In that case, these requests, which had been made intuitively, will go out to centers in creation, and there will be returns. These returns will bring clarity to the seeking personality, the seeking soul, seeking spirit, or bring a lot of power through which many are healed. But all this depends on the personality, the states in which the personality is. If during that time and subsequently it holds on to the purity of intuition and perseveres with the purity of intuition, then in accordance with the laws of creation, helps will be granted to it to enable it to hold on, to enable it to chart better channels, newer directions. It's as if one has been born anew. If, however, that purity of thought, that purity of intuition was only for a very short period, again, one will find that there will also be returns. However, this personality, having initiated that which is of upbuilding, still has a confused outlook, in the sense, on the one hand, it has its tap roots in making the requests fixed on that which is of upbuilding. However, the little side roots, which one refers to as the fibrous roots, are still able to attract that which is ignoble. And as long as this side root is able to absorb so much poison from the environment, then you will find before long that personality is overcome through the channels it has established out there, which draw those things which are ignoble. In that case, the case of relapse is understandable because through these fibrous or side channels, it falls back to the way it was initially. That is what is referred to as relapse.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer and explanation. Before I continue, I just want to tell listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abkushi. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And as I said, you're listening to Bless Radio, and we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we are broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box. Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. Of course, you can also listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1, again the number 1. And the spelling of Zeno is ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1, the number 1. And just to remind you, the topic we're discussing tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. Prayer and relapsing into old faults. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I've received a text from a listener, and they're saying, there's a saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, meaning that you can, when you reach a certain age, you are set in your ways, so old faults become who you are, which cannot be easily cast off. So this is a comment rather than a question, Gregory. But would you like to say something about that?
Again, such things are only assumptions that you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. In fact, tricks is one thing. What is referred to here are the laws of creation, laws of nature, which the human personality strives to grasp again and again on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and throughout its existence as a human personality. Now, one must consider that maturity does not stop at a certain age. Maturity, the refinement of the human personality, is continuous. Therefore, such expressions are only intellectual. They are not of the spirit, which spirit undergoes continuous refinement in its concepts and in its factual applications. From one wonder to another wonder, such is the path of the human personality that wishes to mature from being conscious of one's environment to self-consciousness. So it is continuous and not dependent on one's physical age.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. As you said, this saying is like an intellectual saying, and then that immediately limits what is really possible. As you said, because in reality, it's about maturity and not about the age. You can still grow and mature even in your old age. Or as the saying was saying, you can't teach an old man not new tricks. But what we are saying, no, you can still he can learn new tricks. Although the word tricks, obviously, we say that in quotes rather than tricks, and it's not a negative word when we use it here in this context. Now, Gregory, when we were talking with the word relapse, we're talking about illness. And then in our topic, we are talking about faults, relapsing into old faults rather than sickness as such. So what I want to do, Gregory, I want to look at that word fault as well now. In the dictionary again, I looked it up, and here it says, for the meaning of fault, an unattractive or unsatisfactory feature, especially in a piece of work or in a person's character. My worst fault, this is an example here, my worst fault is impatience. So, Gregory, is that a good definition there? Fault?
It points, that definition is more of a pointer to what faults are referred to. When the laws of nature or the laws of creation are mentioned or are concerned, then for the human personality to refine itself in its sensing through its intuition, there is the need to cultivate the virtues, which virtues have been passed on for cultivation. And one of the virtues which was mentioned indirectly is that of patience. So if one is impatient, then that becomes a fault. a fault which is not in accordance with the virtues which are supposed to be cultivated. So, to a large extent, the definition, which the example given, was fault is impatience. Indeed, that which does not strike or does not resonate with the virtues, with any of the virtues, is a fault.
Thank you again, Gregory, for this answer there. Now, Gregory, another fault can be something through habit. You could say that is one of the most difficult ones to overcome, because you do it habitually. So now I'm just thinking, that has been brought over time. Just the word habit tells you that. So to overcome such a fault, which is over time, does that mean, do we have to produce a counter habit, Gregory, to overcome that? It's like you have a particular routine, and so like we all get up from from the bed at certain time, let's say, and eat the breakfast, and change and whatever, wash up and eat the breakfast. I know that's not really talking about a fault, but I'm just thinking. So, yeah, let me ask it this way, Gregory. For us to overcome a fault, should we analyze what led to that fault? Like, what is like a routine that might have led to that fault? Because you could say it is due to not realizing that we're doing something. So is that maybe the first step, Gregory, to overcome a fault? Do we have to analyze what led to that fault?
Again, the one you have mentioned, you give an example. My worst fault is impatience. And in response to that, one had categorized that impatience as a fault which negates, which does not resonate with the virtues. And in that particular scenario, one may safely say that all that the personality needs to do is to set out to cultivate the virtues. The regularity that you mentioned with routines can be beneficial depending on what drives that regularity. If that regularity, what lies behind it is to cultivate one of the virtues of diligence, or of faithfulness, or of fulfillment of duty, then that routine is of benefit to the human personality, and one will not consider it a fault. If, however, what drives that routine is not one of the virtues, then, as usual, one can say it is a fault. The tendency is always to do some analysis. Of course, analysis may be helpful. However, that which needs to be beneficial must be that which is constructive. For the intuition shows itself in constructive activities, not destructive activities. Being constructive, one step is built after another, sequentially, gradually. One will then find that instead of analysis, like you mentioned, it may be a synthesis, an integration of the different virtues which a man needs to cultivate. That could be a virtue of humility. By humility, one is referring to simplicity. Make it simple instead of making it complex. So instead of asking for 10 things at one time, ask for one simple thing at a time. Strive to understand it. Very sadly, most of this analysis is done intellectually. It does not sink. It doesn't have any impact on one's intuition. And therefore, so much intellectual strength is embellished on the analysis, and subsequently, there are no fruitful results. And therefore, one keeps stressing whatever has no impact on one's intuition is, strictly speaking, of no use, for it is a waste of time. A very simple example, you have many who engage themselves in activities such as trying to find out who came first, the fly, or the egg, or the donkey, who came first on earth. Whereas the possibility is there to observe in nature the sequence of events and follow it. Through the intuition, things becomes simpler. For only in simplicity is the human personality able to mature.
Thank you so much for this answer and picture, Gregory. I can see that, let's say, we have a tendency to, in quotes, go for the easy solution to the problem. But it's like we're looking at one problem, and we think, okay, there's a solution for that one problem. However, if we change our inner being, if I can say, or where our ways from within, then which is what you pointed to about virtues, so adopting the virtues, and then as a consequence of having these noble virtues, automatically we get, let's say, beneficial result with whatever problem we are dealing with, and not only that problem but other problems also, because that attitude sort of, you could say, creates like an aura, if I can say that way. New attitude, new virtue creates like an aura, so that when whatever action we take, it is surrounded by that virtue. And then, of course, that has a benefit not only on that one specific problem, but others as well. So thank you for bringing that out. And the other point you were making, Gregory, was about, as you said it earlier already, connecting with the intuition. Because unless you connect with the intuition, there can't be a result, beneficial result, in anything that we're working on. So yes, thank you for that. Now, so Gregory, we're talking about relapsing into old faults. So when that happens, let's say, can is when so the relapse when it happens, is that because somehow we have lost our way in our, you could say, approach to the virtues, as you mentioned there. Let's say we become lazy, because, like as I said, things become a habit, and then maybe we become slack at some point, and then the in quotes our faults re-emerge, or so is that what it is that causes the relapse to recurring of our faults, let me say? Is it because we are not maintaining, like you said, the connection with the intuition?
Normally, it's good to look at the scenario in a holistic manner. Consider the scenario where one cries out intuitively for a particular solution, and because of its inner attitude, that personality is simple, it is humble, and because of the purity, in some cases, there is an instant reciprocal action, and that person becomes very happy. That does not mean that that person continues with that state in which he was when he was able to open up due to the challenges around him. He was able to open up and ask for help. For if he knew the way and knew what to do, he himself or herself would not ask. But in asking, that is tantamount to acknowledging that he or she does not know. And in its humility and purity, was able then to ask, and that dwelt, impacted on his intuition, which moved the levers, which is like a lever in creation, and was granted help in accordance with its states of purity. The scenario continues that for many, they consider they have done that which is right and do not follow the path which has been shown to them. They become self-satisfied. What they have not considered is that they had to change their inner attitude at the time they asked in humility. And they have not maintained that inner attitude. For if they have persevered with the inner attitude, then other paths are shown to them, and they will not fall in temptation. That they had to fall in their continuous struggle only means they did not persevere in that initial intuition which they had. So the scenario becomes clear that having received help that one had asked for, having received all the support, the human personality is self-satisfied, not knowing that there must be continuous striving to overcome the challenges that present themselves before him. And That's it's why you have that injunction to continue to walk and to pray. To pray in the sense of asking using the abilities of the Spirit, the intuition. And in getting the results, to use it in accordance with the laws of creation, to bring you, the petitioner, benefit, and also to those around you, which is your environment. If one continues to pray and to work, then all the resources granted to you will gradually ensure that your inner being becomes brighter and brighter. Then one needs fear no fall. One needs fear no relapse, because in accordance with the virtues which one is supposed to cultivate, one perseveres, one is patient, one is ready to serve, one has that earnest good volition in all one does. But ask yourself, how many have that earnest good volition? How many have patience and perseverance? Only intermittently do you find the human personality exhibiting these qualities which are virtuous to it, so that it is able to make progress. Because they do not maintain continuously or strive to maintain continuously that connection intuitively, then the likelihood is that they then fall when challenges then accost them anew.
Again, Gregory, thank you so much for this answer. You pointed to the Lord's Prayer there, given by Jesus. So we very clearly, there has to be this attitude of being continuously prayerful. And then, this basically, just like eating food or breathing, everything is ongoing. So the attitude must be maintained ongoingly. Prayerful attitude I'm talking about. Not, oh, I've done something and now that's it. There is constant work on ourselves. You said work and pray. So I think that's a brilliant sort of example and picture there for us to recognize. And, to recognize first, to realize what it means, Prayer, as I said, some people might think of it as worship of God. Others it might mean petition for some request they want. There's something they want. But then there's something more to it. It gives the purity, as you said, and humility. So these are all driving forces, which are necessary for, you could say, living our life. And we have not appreciated it. So thank you again for that. Dear listeners, I want to just remind you, you are listening to Bless Radio. And this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushi. And if you are interested in knowing about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail Message, MESSAGE.com. And you're listening to us on Bless Radio 1, that's the number one.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show the next day, also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number one, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1. That's the number one. And the topic we're discussing tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. Prayer and relapsing into old faults. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of the UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, I've got another question from a listener, and this is about addictions. So I'm just going to read out the question. The listener is asking, are there spiritual beings in the beyond who feed off the propensities of the personality, who seeks to free themselves from their faults, such as smokers, or smoking, I guess, is a fault, making the development difficult on earth? I'll just read that out again. Are there spiritual beings in the beyond who feed off the propensities of the personality, who seeks to free themselves from their faults, such as smoking, making development difficult on earth?
Thanks for that particular question. There are many a personality whilst here on earth is so hooked up to smoking, and these attitudes or this tendency then touches on one's intuition, and he or she is so held up with it. Whereas whilst on earth, whenever he or she has not got cigarettes, but can see those who smoke, tends to go near those people such that he or she can enjoy the sensation of smoking. The results of this is that this human personality, whilst still on earth, because these tendencies are so strong on it, and impacts on the intuition, it forms, in quotes, the demon, which demon is hooked up in smoking, the activity of smoking. So the human personality, through his intuition, has given rise to entities of this nature. That is one case. It doesn't stop there. Before long, that personality who is so hooked up in smoking, along the line, leaves the physical body, a process which is referred to as death. However, that strong sensation is still inborn with the human soul. It is, and the only way this particular personality can enjoy the sensation is to go close to those who enjoy smoking. And therefore, these are the personalities who are no more in flesh, who make suggestions or inflame the passions of those who are on earth to go for a smoke. It becomes a strong habit which dwells on the intuition. Such a scenario exists in reality and in fact. Therefore, it is factual. What you then have is that many a person, even when they have their own self-will and say they don't wish to smoke, from time to time, they have this nagging feeling. I must to put their hands in their mouths or to look for a pipe or to look for a big cigar and to feel good. Because that is the only way those who are hooked up to smoking will enjoy the sensation. Not only is it for smoking, it's also the same thing for those who are gluttons. Same thing for those who are sex maniacs. It's all the same thing for those who like to shoot people, to kill people. So when you put these things together, you find that these urges must have arisen from human personality, which they then carried over when they have lost their physical body. They have taken these strong urges over to the beyond. And you can already see the picture that they are not far away. They are still very close by because they like to smoke. They like to eat. Like for those who are gluttons who like to eat, they enjoy the feeling when they see someone overeating. It makes them feel good because there is that homogeneity and they feel the same thing for so-called drug addicts or sex addicts or even those who like to tell lies. All these are abnormalities because it is the human personality who have brought them into being. What was not there before, they have cultivated a habit. And therefore, those who have passed on still have the ability to influence those who are still on earth. At the same time, because it touched on their intuition, these intuitions have forms and they form centers where people gather together to enjoy that which is, in quotes, touches their senses, tickles their senses, and they are able to feel good. However, they may not know the passage of time. Such a scenario may last for a very long time. It could be 10, 20, maybe 100, or even 200 years. You find that the human personality is trapped, unable to make further progress.
Again, Gregory, thank you so much for this answer and the picture you painted. I must admit, it sounds very terrifying to see this picture because obviously what you've said is we have earthly activity taking place with not only having earthly consequences, but also spiritual consequences in the beyond. Not only beyond, of course, in the earthly as well, but there's an impact in the beyond with our earthly addictions is what we're actually referring to here. And we know already how difficult addictions are to overcome. But now you brought in this the activity that's also happening in the, you could say, corresponding activity in the beyond, involving other spiritual beings, other human beings, you could say, in the beyond, which makes things, in quotes, complicated in freeing ourselves, those of us who are suffering that addiction on the earth. So it's quite a bit terrifying. When you mentioned earlier, Gregory, with talking about our, could say, in an attitude of being pure, humble, and connecting with our intuition within our prayer, can that also still work in case of addictions? Because, as I said, now it looks like it's not only you involved, there's others involved. So can prayer help in this situation?
Consider the scenario where the fervent, pure and simple prayer has a strong impact on one's intuition. In that particular scenario, there are many in the beyond who are ready always to help. Those ones are prepared to point man in the right direction it needs to take. The challenge is the human personality must do this by himself. So if he or she is shown a path to follow, he or she must follow that path to salvation. For it is the human personality who is involved. So a path to freedom can be shown, but the human personality cannot be forced. The free will of the human personality is respected. So, a very simple example that one may use is that you can be given the path to be a path through medication. If you're unwell, the tablets, so-called, may be given to you. You yourself still have to take these tablets. You must carry out that free will of taking these tablets and following the regime to ensure that things become better. There are some who are asked to leave their immediate environment and move to another environment where what they are used to is not easily available. These are only pieces of advice, but the human personality must decide to follow the advice intuitively or not to follow the advice intuitively. That freedom of choice is always with the human personality. He or she is never forced. However, the consequences of his decision to be free or not to be free lies in his or her hands. So you find that even in prayer, even in an earnest prayer, where the clarity is passed on to the human personality, strength is mediated to the human personality. If the human personality refuses to use that which has been granted to it, then the challenge, the guilt is then his.
Thank you again, Gregory, for this answer. What I see from what you've said is that even if you're in a very deep problem or fault, addiction in this case, help is there. Yes, we already talked about prayer, but maybe we just maybe slightly forgetting that, what is, when we say prayer, there's something that goes along with prayer, which is the attitude that has to be there. Humility, purity, earnestness, connecting with the intuition. Without that, you could say the power doesn't have power, and then of course it doesn't have the result either. And so that you could say confidence. We must have that everything can be overcome if we strive in the right way, no matter how tough the issue is or the addiction is. So thank you for that. Now, Gregory, these addictions, they can have other effects, in fact, terrible effects. Mental problems can come out through, excessive drinking of alcohol or taking drugs. You can become depressed, or in fact, people sometimes do take up these addictions, smoking and such, because of they are under stress or depression. But it can work the opposite way as well by just drinking those things. Now, practicing these things. And as we said, these are faults which, very frequently result in relapse. So, Gregory, the smoking and drinking, which, as I say, we look at it maybe as in a physical way, there are the emotional and mental sides to their effects, let's say, that come across that. So my question on that is, are we, let me say, I'm mixing a few things here, Gregory. They say prevention is better than cure. Now, obviously, that's easy to say before you have something, but once you have something, as I say, although we can say with confidence, if we have the right attitude, we can overcome things. But when things have, let's say, gone quite excessive in many directions, negative way. Um, are there any, what I'm pointing to, Gregory, is it only the prayer and attitude are the only way, or is there some, let's say, other activities, external activities like eating good food or some other physical means, let me say, that also are required to, people take medication, people take these, diet, we can say. Are they also necessary to overcome such deep faults and addictions?
Very simply, it's good to consider the scenario where you have excessive alcohol consumption. In that particular scenario, for example, that alcohol consumption, the excess of it, changes the radiations of the blood. And that may explain why you find some of those who overdrink, they see all sorts of characters because the radiation of the blood has been slightly altered. And it doesn't, even when one stops drinking, it doesn't vanish overnight because it was built up over time. And subsequently, you have that the organs have had to adjust themselves to that level of hyperactivity to the extent that some of the organs, like the liver or whatever, or the kidney, becomes damaged. It depends on the level of damage that has been done. Sometimes these damages are not easily reversible. That is on the physical level. On the non-physical level, which has more to do with one's intuition, because it has now impacted. These intuitive forms which have been created are still there, and they do have an impact on the person's perception. For such forms, or to put it very clearly, such hideous forms, we only attract those that are homogeneous to it in accordance with the attraction of homogeneity. Or to put it in a very simple language, those hideous forms will resonate with similar or equivalent hideous forms emanating from others who, like him, like to drink. So those hideous forms support one another and also intensify their activity on that person who likes to have as much drinks as possible. So it's a battle on two sides. One on the earthly, with the physical body, with the change or the alteration of one's blood radiation, and on the non, in quotes, earthly, on the intuitive side, in which we have intuitive forms which have now been put in place, structural forms which have been put in place, which attract others in homogeneity, now having an impact on those who first gave rise to them. That is the battle that many have to fight, both on the earthly and the non-earthly. It takes courage and composition for a human personality to cry out, asking for help. Of course, help is always available for those who genuinely cry out, who genuinely and intuitively cry out for help. And they can be helped. The direction can be pointed out to them. That direction, they have to follow the direction. And it will not be expected that the liver, which they have damaged so severely, the organs of the body, which have been impacted so severely, all of a sudden, everything comes to normal when they themselves, deep within them, are still having such urges to take a bit more here, a bit more there. It lies with man and man alone how he or she strives to proceed in accordance with the laws through which he or she also came into existence. That is the challenge for each personality. Just as it is with food intake or with drinks, so also with other habits which man has formed. These habits which are not virtuous, these habits could be that of pride, could be that of greed, could be that of envy, could be that of lust, or of gluttony. One cannot rule out laziness, which is many refer to as being slothful. So the human personality must be doubly watchful whilst here or even hereafter. So it is not as easy as they make it to be, although the answer to their challenges is simple. It is they and only they who, when shown the path to follow, who have to follow that path. The same thing happens with one's own beliefs or what they refer to as religion. The path is shown. The path the human personality needs to follow, the path to freedom of spirit is shown. The power is granted. However, the human personality must make use of what has been granted to it in accordance with the laws of creation. Only then will it bring benefit first to the personality and subsequently to the neighborhoods.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your again painting this picture and showing us this process on the earthly level and the spiritual level, the activity of with this, I said, effects of the addictions, how to overcome them and so on, which maybe we haven't thought about it at this depth of how they affect on different levels. And yet, we can still overcome that. So this is a beautiful thought you can have, that yes, despite how far we go astray, there's still a way out. So thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushi. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can hear the recording of this show the next day, again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. Of course, you can also listen to the recordings of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno.fm /Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO .fm, Zeno.fm /Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again. And as I mentioned, the topic we're discussing tonight is prayer and relapsing into old faults. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00 44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I've received a question from a different listener now. Let me just read that out. Does the close presence or proximity of mass tobacco plants or farms have any additional effect in either of these realms? So I guess the listener was listening to the reply Gregory were giving to an earlier question about smoking, the impact of smoking, where, let's say, people in the beyond, or human beings in the beyond, have an impact on us, those who are smoking here. I'm guessing that's what this is relating to. First, I'm going to repeat the question there, Gregory. It says, does the close presence or proximity of mass tobacco plants or farms have any additional effect in either of these realms? And if the listener, please, can they just say the realms they're referring to? I'm assuming they're talking about the earthly realm and the beyond.
Well, one can very quickly say that the urges which had been carried over with one's intuition of those in the beyond have a reciprocal effect on smokers. And that effect is such as to urge them to where they can easily find the means to gratify this particular sensation. Therefore, you will find smokers will always find themselves or find a way of getting a cigarette, whether the factory is nearby or not nearby. They will always strive to find a way of getting that which gives them that gratification. However, the presence of a farm where tobacco is only the beginning. There's also the presence of a factory where these things are packed. The same thing happens to one who is a glutton, who, having passed on, wishes to satisfy that sensation of gluttony. So you will have, wherever there are factories that produce so much of this, they will be close by. The same thing happens in the case of alcohol, where many will want to gravitate to such a neighborhood and urge people to produce more quickly because they wish to see those who enjoy the excesses of this at parties and to participate. So indirectly, or sometimes directly, the presence of these farms or factories also add to the hastening to gratify these sort of sensations. Yes, it does.
Thank you for that, Gregory. That listener that I was asking about what realms he's talking about, he or she, it said it is the earthly and the beyond. So this is exactly what I was suspecting. So thank you, listener. Hopefully we've answered that question. If you have anything further, you can please contact again. Thank you for that. Now, Gregory, I've got another question from the same listener before, the listener who sent the questions in earlier. And so let me read that one out. It says, can one's religious belief hold one back if misunderstood by spiritual arrogance? Let me say it again. So the listener is asking, can one's religious beliefs hold one back if misunderstood by spiritual arrogance?
Of course, one's religious beliefs, if they do not resonate with the laws of nature or the laws of creation, then because you have that these religious beliefs have been internalized by the human personality, these now form the blockages through which the human personality cannot proceed further. A very simple example, there are many who hold the view that Christ, in his suffering, has died for their sins. And in their personal indolence, they need do anything. All they need to do is just say, oh, he's died for my sins, I am free. Forgetting very carefully that Christ himself made it very clear that which a man has sown, it is that he or she must reap. So, as you have sown so shall you reap. It means that you yourself, only through your personal activities, can you extricate yourself from that scenario that you have permitted yourself to gravitate to. The way out of that scenario, the power can be mediated to you, but you yourself must make use of that knowledge, must make use of that power, but make use of that love and walk away. That means there must be an inner change of attitude towards that which is virtuous. Only through such activity can one sever those threats that one has brought into being initially. However, you now have someone who believes that he or she doesn't need to do anything, and Christ has taken the suffering. Sooner or later, he or she loses the physical body, and we now have to find that those things he has sown, the returns are still coming because there had been no inner change for improvement. There has been no inner change for diligence or modesty, wisdom, or humility or compassion. On the talk of vigilance and alertness, that the human personality is still as wretched and indolent as before. Therefore, it has placed itself at a particular position where it attracts those ignoble qualities to itself, whilst at the same time believing that another must take upon his filthy ways and clean him or her up. So the personality remains at that level it has placed itself, and therefore unable to rise higher. However, for now, we live in the world of matter. The world of matter is temporal. It has a lifespan in which it comes into being, it matures, and must subsequently disintegrate to its primeval substances. And the threads the human spirit has spun here in the world of matter. And subsequently, when the world of matter undergoes disintegration to its primeval substances, the human personality that has been too indolent in spirit to sever those threads which holds it down, which he himself or herself has spun, remains there. And therefore will have to experience the disintegration of the world of matter. In that case, the structure which the human personality, the human form which the human personality has cultivated so far, is unable to withstand these changes, and therefore it itself, that human form, is also disintegrates and it therefore loses the human form and has to go back to paradise as an unconscious spirit chair. That in itself is spiritual death. Therefore, the time is right. It is high time for the human personality to wake up and take up the responsibility that has accrued as a human personality that wishes to become self-conscious. This should not be taken lightly.
Thank you, Gregory, for this answer. And again, the picture you're painting, it shows how, you could say, we know every action has consequences, but these actions can have very deep, serious consequences, which we are probably not realizing. And, they can have, let's say, life-changing consequences. So people just think of earthly things that are happening around and thinking, oh yes, that's it. But actually, we have in this program very clearly, we have shown that the impact is also happening in the spiritual, in the beyond, and then into the spiritual. So it's that's a lot of, let's say, sensing and reflection we need to think of, when we are, dealing with what we're dealing with in life. So thank you for that. Now, Gregory, people, let's say, start, you could say, with a good volition to overcome, well, let's say, to be noble and, overcome their faults or whatever it is. And but what happens, Gregory, is we've talked about temptation, but then let's say thoughts which are opposite of what we want to strive for also come in, almost you could say unintentionally, because those thoughts are somehow attracted to us, and that happens. And some people worry that, oh, this will set me on the wrong path, and how can I, almost you could say, get rid of these negative thoughts, because we know every action, every thought has an effect, an impact. So Gregory, my question is, when we are striving for something noble and good in our thoughts, and yet we encounter negative or opposing thoughts as well, what can we do about it?
Very simply, if those strivings are deep enough that touches the human intuition, then it will trigger the virtues which need to be cultivated. The virtue of diligence, the virtue of modesty, virtue of humility, the virtue of vigilance and alertness. Assuming man follows that particular path, in vigilance and in alertness, whatever he then encounters on his or her path, he himself will know how to deal with it, such that even the resistance which would have brought him down brings him benefit. And in a step-by-step fashion, he is able to overcome the challenges in accordance to his openness, in accordance to the contact is able to make through his intuition to the centers of virtues, of modesty, of diligence, of wisdom and humility. These centers, or put it bluntly, these virtues are personalized, and these persons who stand at this post are able to mediate wisdom or mediate strength, mediate power to him or her who strives after this. So it becomes clear he or she who seeks diligently will find, will be helped, will be supported. Therefore, it needs not fear anything along the path as long as it strives after that which is noble.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. We've come to the end of the program, almost to the end of the program. And I want to let listeners know the topic we chose tonight, as you know, is prayer and relapsing into the topic tonight was prayer and relapsing into old faults. Now, the inspiration of that title, I would like to let listeners know, came from a book or writing called Question and Answers, where Abdushin, the author of the Grail Messages, asks questions from readers of the Grail Message in the Light of Truth. And so these are individual questions sent to Abdushin, and he answered, them there. So just to let you know, listeners, there's not to divert you, but just to make you aware that there is writing a book called Question and Answers, where Abdushin also answers questions to those who are readers of the Grail Message in the Light of Truth. And so tonight's topic, the inspiration came from a question. The actual question was, what happens if after the granting of a prayer, a person falls back again into his old faults? So that's just to let you have that background, listeners. And of course, if you are interested in getting that book as well, you can go to the same website as you can find the Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abdushin, and that website is www.grailmessage.com. I'll just spell it: www.grail, which is GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. And I'd like to end the show, like I like to do normally, by reading from the foreword of the Grail Message, which is titled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such, it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners and readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Aprushin. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Yes, first in the book Question and Answers, the question that prompted this discussion is question 11. So for those who will wish to avail themselves of the copy of Question and Answers, is question 11. You yourself may go through the answers given by the author. And secondly, one would like to wish listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you so much for that, Gregory. And thank you, listeners, for joining us tonight for this topic tonight, which was prayer and relapsing into old faults. Hope you enjoyed the discussion and found it enlightening. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic introducing the Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Aprushin. So I wish you also a great week. Take care, everybody. God bless.